integrated in the cookie jar.
Literally.
Please. Yeah. You like?
No, so now that I've had my beer, I had my Biscotti.
Right, this is very good.
Where's the other team?
You know, they're on their way. We can probably get started.
Because then we'll have to start over. Yeah, I mean, at some level. How far are they away? Are they?
They're in the finance group.
Those are very good cookies.
These are really good ones.
Oh, these are great.
Well, text your
The
wife.
gooeyest ones.
I'm calling
What do you want?
She's gonna try them.
If possible.
You can try them all. She'll give us an evaluation.
Hey, where are you guys?
So I am. I think
See, that just
2 minutes
isn't
away?
good
Okay.
enough.
We'll wait for you.
Good design should be
So 2 minutes away.
I didn't touch that. I don't want to know what it's been.
That's the father, son.
This you wear, right?
Right.
Yeah, I don't mind that you record it. It's just that I know it changes conversation.
It doesn't for me, and if we, and it's not going to go live. But if, at the end, if everyone says there's something cool that came out of it,
The problem is there's nothing smart to say, and so.
I disagree.
Well, there is, but this is a new thing. It's just starting, right? And that's why I wanted to.
That's one of the smartest things. That's it.
No, it's like
Well,
when
that's
I
a
was
good
in
question.
Jeremiah, I unboxed the Apple II in 1977, and I said, "This is my
Remember the
future."
smell of it when you open up that box?
A little bit, but I remember sticking a cassette tape in and going, "What does this do? It does nothing." But and then we started dreaming about our future. And, I was about your age, right? And it took 30 years for the industry to happen, right? But that was like a beginning. It was early days. It was things before that. But, wearables seems like it's just at that phase. I mean, this feels like the Apple II of wearables. It does nothing.
Well, the reason I asked that
It's really expensive.
We're starting at the right point. There's margin in something that's expensive that doesn't do anything.
But back at Comdex in 1999, they had a fashion show.
I was a part of it.
Well, this is why
it was a massive fashion show, and I can tell you unequivocally, it's fun for me to watch this happening again. Cybernaut is not much different than Google Glass.
Wearable computer.
Yeah, it was a wearable computer with a flip-up display, and you flip it down, and it had a Windows CD.
Keypad on here.
No, it had a mouse. That was censored, not dissimilar from this. And it's very similar.
Yeah. It's hard to see, but this is an Arduino Lily Pad, and that's why I called you, because I saw Reg runs the Glaze conference and runs Wearable World Incubator, where there's just a few companies who have 1 or 2 people in them just playing around, and they have these little lily pads, and they're breadboards. They're the modern breadboard. And
It's a lily.
it's called a lily pad.
That's the name of the company, I think.
It's what it's called. An Arduino lily pad. It's an Arduino processor with stainless steel eyelets for stainless steel wires, and you can make a Burning Man thing, right? That with switches or sensors, with lights.
Well, you start to get wearable with things like Raspberry too, right? I mean, I've seen some things that went down with the Raspberry device. But have you seen Little Bits?
No.
So Little Bits is this new thing that kind of announced its head like last year or something like that. But it's a company that actually makes these little snap-together things for young people to do like electronic experiments with. But the reality is, it's like Lego, but electronic, and it snaps together. And they've gotten more and more inventive. It was an MIT project. But the reason it's interesting is it allows the modularity of wearables, theoretically, and they're all very lightweight. They can all be easily sewn into a seam or whatever else, but it allows you to kind of create whatever you want.
Yeah, it's going to get some more chairs.
It makes it to create whatever you want.
We're getting more. Come on in.
Come on in. Everyone come.
We were waiting to start. Come on in.
Yeah, we're just.
There should be a dance audition for anybody that comes late.
Oh, you need. Do we have a restroom?
Restroom back here. Chairs are coming. Beer in the corner.
Julian's
Lots of cookies here.
Julian's one of the wearables experts. Andy built the iPhone. We're talking about what you built North Face. You're building a wearable.
Freedom.
No, you're building freedom.
Building freedom.
Building freedom.
I have Tom O'Leary, who he's my partner, who's on Skype, listening. We may him chime in from time to time. Remind me of your contribution.
He's a capitalist.
I'm David Blumberg. I'm resident of San Francisco. I'm a venture capitalist. That means I invest in brilliant young entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And we have one company that's vaguely related to wearables. It's more it's from Israel. It's called Mishore. And it's essentially helping with heads-up display. So their theme is drive like a pilot.
But what did you do to become a capitalist? Usually you don't just come out of college and
yeah, I can't hold a job. That's why. But basically, my focus in life originally was to change the world. It's a very ideal thing. I want to change the world, so I thought I'd study international relations and work in government. And then I worked in government for 3 summers. And the job was not the way to change the world. And then I thought, what's the way to change the world? It seems like it's science combined with entrepreneurship. And business innovation is really about making a big difference. So I thought, I'm going to hitch my wagon to that team. And then I jumped into some very early startup things like checkpoint software. I was the executive there and helped do all the business development and first bit and stuff, which is exciting with running firewall based. And I've been involved in tech ever since. And so now our firm does all early stage investing, $150 million fund, about 65 companies in our portfolio.
So why I called Scott up was, I was hanging out with Reg Snowgrass, who runs the Blaze conference, and hanging out in his incubator, and one of the guys who's building some gloves and some things, wearable stuff with lights built into it for bicyclists with switches and stuff. He's using these Arduino LilyPad breadboards. I call them breadboards, but they're a prototyping device for wearables. And you buy them for $25, and they have a processor on them, and they have a bunch of eyelets where you can hook in.
But that's when you showed me the T-shirt.
Stainless steel wire to an LED light or a switch or a sensor, and you can start building stuff for Burning Man, right? That's
pretty soon you aren't going to need the stainless steel wire.
Right, but this is a new area.
You also can have conductive fibers and nanotechnology.
Yeah.
In the nano, you can actually put the conductors.
So I just
so it will give you a lot more flexibility.
I've been going around the world. Julian's doing the same thing.
Just uncomfortable with blocking or whatever.
So we're seeing all sorts of new stuff bubbling up. In Ireland, I went to a company that builds a lot of nano stuff, and they have sensors on the tips of arrows and sensors that go into hands, for surgery and stuff like that, and all sorts of wearable stuff that is not yet a product that will be a product. It's R&D work that is coming out of the cell phone industry, because the cell phone industry sells $1 billion of these things, and so there's a lot of work to come up with new sensors for this, and that's driving the price down radically fast. And so some of the stories, I visited Prime Sense, that makes a 3D sensor, which I probably have a 3D sensor. But the guy who invented that licensed it to my shop with a Kinect, right? It's a 3D sensor, can see a room in 3D. Last year at CES that was $100. This year it's $20. And I just saw one that's a cheaper one that's going into a toy for 50 cents. So the cost is coming down radically fast. Whenever costs on things come down radically fast, business is positive, right? So it's something's happening in this wearable space, and we at that R&D lab they have silicon needles that are going to be on a patch that sits on your skin and can go and pull a little bit of blood out and do stuff with it, right? See if you have or watch your diabetes, so you don't have to prick your finger anymore.
It's incredible, and to bring. First, let me thank everyone for coming here. It's a diverse group of people. We don't often get these type of people here in Sun Valley, and it's an honor to play a small role in this, just to bring these great minds together and think about it. We're trying to think about what were our goals when we put this out. We all have different goals. The goal is just that, my overriding goal is have a conversation. Just, I don't want to start a business. I don't want to get into the wearable space any more so than I am. I just want to hear what the smartest people in this space have to say about it.
And part of the conversation that was happening was you're sort of like, I don't believe that sensors and wires are going to be built into my shirt. But at CES, I was wearing a shirt with sensors and wires and LED lights built into the fabric, and it's waterproof and scrunchable and washable.
Science or?
It was called the T-shirt OS. It's a prototype right now. It's $3,000, but if she gets funded, it could be $200.
Is it Amy's or who's doing it? Who's the she?
What's that?
Who's the she?
An entrepreneur who built a company
Okay,
and is selling it to Valentine sponsored the shirt because they're wearing it at nightclubs, and you can put anything. It's a grid of, I don't know, 100 by 200 LED lights. I have pictures of them, and you can put anything on these lights.
Oh, I see. Cool.
So you wear it on stage, and you're like, man, but it's.
Well, I mean, the elephant in the room for me, and I've got an issue and a solution. It's not a perfect solution, but it's battery power. Any wearable device, requires an excessive amount of battery power if it's truly intended to be ubiquitous, always on, always available. I mean, Google Glass is a perfect example, but I'm learning though. You introduced me to Sunny Goo, Julianne. With Shine, this has got 9 months of battery power and a sensor that's waterproof and capable of being and very inexpensive. The future variations. So from a sensor perspective, but I firmly believe for consumer use, most sensors, the best sensor is your body. I mean, you know how you feel. You know if you have a fever, and I kind of think that don't improve the human computer that much more. Doesn't mean that military purposes or medical or athletes. You pointed a number of purposes.
There's a shirt company coming out that has 14 sensors in the shirt that watches you work out, and for professional athletes who are trying to get a 0.5% better and win a gold medal. That kind of stuff is real important. There's a shoe company coming out that has sensors in the shoes to study how you walk and run. And we just saw a TED Talk done by
I just looked to see if it's going to go out either today or tomorrow.
It's Hugo Her.
H-E-R-R.
He lost his legs in a climbing accident and now builds bionic legs at the MIT Media Lab. And I met him at Google Zeitgeist last year.
They really call him bionic legs.
Oh yeah, and he's bionics. When we got him alone, he said, "My legs in 2 years are going to be better than yours are," which leads to a new ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
You cut off your legs to get better legs. And we are going to. Somebody's going to do that. Absolutely. I mean, I look at the body modification stuff. I mean, people's paying $4,000 to have our eyes augmented, right?
Yeah. Or to be taller, right? Once you have the ability to adjust.
I thought nobody would ever find out about that.
But his latest talk was showing how he's trying to come up with new human-machine interfaces, and he studies the leg with all sorts of sensors and pressure monitors that find the soft and hard parts, and find out how our brain is communicating with our legs. So jack into the nerves so you can control the leg and
combined with some 3D printing stuff so that it's completely custom. That's
the ultimate wearable, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a sleeker version of Iron Man is basically what he's doing, right? He's basically literally every inch of it can change and conform in terms of if you have soft points, it provides hard points. And if you have hard points, it provides soft points.
Well, he's playing with some material that SRI showed me that stiffens with electronic impulse. It's a
phase change.
No, it stiffens. It's like rubber material, and you put electricity into it, and it stiffens. It's a muscle.
Yeah.
Like the old brain cam.
Yeah.
It's an electronic muscle.
Yeah.
And he's putting that material around his thumb, and you can play a little bit of electricity to it and change how it interacts with it, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
This is a brain sensor. So, this is a series of EEGs that watches your brain, and she's playing with it. I have the first prototype that's coming out this summer.
Towards what end?
Voted.
She's using it for biofeedback. So you hook this up and you play little audio games with it, and it helps you calm your mind and get into flow state and stuff like that. So Facebook and Google are playing with devices like this to make their programmers more productive. Because Joel Spolsky told me, I don't know how to get a programmer into flow state, but once you're there, you leave them alone, because in that hour, how many hours a week do you actually work?
A lot. My hourly wage is pretty low.
but when does the code get? How many hours a week do you actually?
I would akin it to being a writer. Like, how often does a writer actually produce meaningful prose? Probably when it suits them. And I think there's an equivalent of, coder's block, just like a writer's block.
Right, so if you can play with something like this and play a little game, and all of a sudden flip into flow state, and because you calm your mind and you get into that, boom, you get into flow state twice a week instead of once a week. Now you write twice as much code, right? And that's a huge productivity boost for somebody like Facebook, It was the sensors are getting cheaper. This used to be $10,000, and now it's $200. So the sensors are coming down in cost, and now you can make new things with these new sensors.
I don't know if this is off topic, but can I ask, is this part of sort of a division of really the ubiquity of computing? And how not just wearables and the body and equipping us, but the rooms and the shopping malls and the highways will all be sensorized or accessorized or whatever you call it, and intelligent and integrated. So
I think they already are, right? You got sensors everywhere, you don't even know they are.
I think the problem we've had, though, is that it's to me it's what I do.
And that's why I brought this in.
To me, it boils down to a software problem. At the end of the day, we have enough things that generate lots of data. We just don't have the ability to make sense out of them.
Do we not have the ability, really?
Well,
Or
I got
I
this Fitbit, and Fitbit is a great piece of, I think, hardware, but it's not a very good. What do I get out of it?
Well, so you and I work for a company from Russia, and we actually make sense of the data. So we actually built an algorithm for the past 2 years, and we can diagnose the Fitbit user with early stage of depression, diabetes, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, up to 90% accuracy.
Yeah.
So if you have diabetes, we will know that you have diabetes.
In fact, he's done that for us as we came in the door.
Well, that's interesting. Sonny's business plan is just collecting the data.
Well, so I'm talking to him, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking for this, right? So.
Oh, is that who you're talking? Oh, okay.
But the algorithm is a critical thing, because most people are thinking about the electronics, and then, so what? I mean, now you generate more data, and it helps you a little bit, but, if you have a Fitbit like my wife does, or whatever, after a while, you get really bored. You just kind of generate data, and you kind of say that we don't get there. But if you tie it to health metrics, or you tie it to actually training that is done, or something, now it starts becoming really valuable. So you've got to be able to process that information, and it's got to be algorithms that do it. It can't just be.
It's just a mathematical formula, right? Basically,
It's not complicated.
so it's it's not. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But
No,
if
but
you have
it-
it all enough sample, you can figure it out.
But in essence, that is the I/O, right? So it's the so you're saying it kind of gets boring.
Yeah.
I've used all of them. I think probably a couple of people in the room are friends with Eve Bahar, who and so when they first came out with the first version of Up, which obviously had a bit of a disastrous introduction, some of the earliest press materials talked about the fact that insurance companies would be investing. Health insurance companies would be investing because of the the I/O, the feedback loop of it telling somebody who has diabetes to walk. My thing, I don't know if I love it or not, but the new version of the Fuel Band, visually tells me, it says "Go Dan," which is a little bit embarrassing, especially when other people see it. So I'm not sure it's the perfect solution. I should come up with a more interesting name to put on it. But that yes, there's no question it can get boring. But then there's the O, which is the output that these things can provide almost instantaneously.
It can also be used against you, though, right? And especially with an insurance company, they're motivated by it.
Well, we bought them for all our employees, and I knew how much sleep. I bought Jawbone Up for all my employees. It was optional, and said it was for a workout challenge we were doing at the Y. And I said, I will give this to you, but join a group so we can all egg each other on and help each other do better. But you knew what time someone went to bed,
right,
when they were coming in late, and when they got some action. You could actually see that,
exactly.
And it was good.
I had dinner with the 23andMe CEO. I'm blinking on her name.
Ann Wojcicki.
Wojcicki. And she was talking about some of the challenges that they're facing by collecting all this data on people. That there's some people that want to use it for say, like insurance or medical. Obviously, they have big issues there.
So we're talking to insurance companies, right? So our big thing is we can also do the biological age, which varies depending on how much you decide. So imagine if I'd love to pay less on my medical insurance if I have a better biological age than you do.
I think
but that goes to the point. That goes to the point of whether it's opt-in or whether it's mandatory. So if you guys remember, Progressive Car Insurance came out with a widget you could put in your car. If you chose to opt in, and if you were a good driver, So but it also created a behavior, right? Because you knew that it was there, but it would track you. You could get a lower cost on your insurance. Exactly the same thing. My dad happens to be on the board of United Healthcare. They've got a huge team of people working on all these different things. Where again, it's opt-in. You don't have to do it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
And and there's you sign all the EULAs about how they'll use the information, but anomalized, it does provide Geo better than I.
Well, so I'm also talking to connected car vendors, right? So they're very interested into this.
Well, the football players I saw, I met the guy who's building a sensor for football players that they wear on their back, and it tells your heart rate, your running speed, if somebody hits you, what force was exerted on you.
It zaps them if they're not running fast enough, right? Zaps them in the back.
Well, soon you're going to be watching a football game, and the player, as he's running down the field, is going to be spraying out data, and you're going to see like he's doing
there are two
0 to
things.
60.
There are two things. They also talk. Ted also had a football player talk about putting much better than these silly things cameras on, and be able to see the player you choose as you're watching.
Yeah.
You can choose to see what it looks like from his perspective.
We keep going back though to medical. Is that just because it's the obvious use case for wearables?
I think it's the first.
Well, but there's two sides to medical, right? There's also the personal side, obviously, of medical, and then there's the clinical side or the clinical evaluations of that activity.
I think military, industrial, medical, and athletic as well.
Well, but it goes to athletic, and then athletic, and other people can speak better than I, but it goes to that broader branch of athletic of people who just want to sort of kind of keep up. And what's interesting is, with Google Glass, unless you wear it, you really don't recognize the feature. It has this thing, with the tilt up, tilt down. So right, so it's got the accelerometer stuff in it, and that can offer certain functions. But the other thing that happens is if you look up, look down, and blink with your right eye, it's going to be called the Google. What was it called? The Google Twitch, right? The Google Twitch, right? Which is a little weird when you're looking at somebody.
Well, there's an eye sensor here.
Right, but I'm talking about the eye sensor. So incredibly cheap part of that overall thing, right? But the eye sensor can, if it was in another piece of equipment that wouldn't require all this extra goo, could do very interesting things, whether you're on the road or you want to give it other simple commands, right? So this could be the simple switch, right? And it could be something very, very small. Well, the regular glasses.
In Toronto, when I was just in Toronto 2 weeks ago, meeting with a lot of wearables, there was guys who were building a wearable sensor for athletes, and the coaches are loving this thing because it gives them real data on how hard they're pushing their athletes, and it helps them really improve performance.
But that's part of what my coach is all about.
Yeah.
Textronics was acquired by
But
Adidas.
but there was another part of Toronto which was all about fashion and people playing with Burning Man style stuff. The lady I met with was building clothing with wings that come up and down and lights and all sorts of sensors that are sensing your body and interacting with your world. I mean, I told Burning Man or Cirque du Soleil kind of stuff, but I think this is going to come into the nightclubs, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why I bought this thing, because
what is that thing?
This is the JBL Pulse speaker, right? And
It's actually pretty good speaker too.
It's awesome.
yeah, but the thing that's magical about this and why it's a good thing to bring to DENT is if I'm working at JBL right now, I am pissed about this product. Because I just spent 30 years of my life making better audio gear to push air to your ears better. That's what I spent my whole career doing. And this guy comes along, or this team in China comes along and puts some lights on a cheap speaker, and all of a sudden I sold out. Why? That's counterintuitive. But
No, because it's fashion.
But it's also, I think it's evocative of where our culture is. And I think that's why I used to really say, man, why is Scott always talking about pot, on his Facebook page? And I'm like, that was, in one context, an old person's context, that's stupid, but pot is legalizing. And we're having Burning Man experiences now, and Coachella, and Austin City Limits, and these raves where the kids are now playing with this kind of music with really intricate pixel mapped displays, projection displays that are just really mind-blowing and beautiful. And this product has a little bit of it. But we were talking, well, everybody at JBL hates this product. They don't know what they have. And
Well, I wouldn't say everyone hates that product. I don't know that, but you're onto something. That this is a pivoting point here of a product that can do so much more.
But if I was on the 2.0 team saying, okay, this is a successful product, it's sold out, let's build it, let's do something with this. What's next?
Well, what we talked about, we're already planning, incorporating these lights into a jacket. If you have thin speakers on both sides, and then you have this ability to personalize. Because people in fashion want to personalize.
Yeah.
So and play music and go to a club, and maybe you have a band with someone's got a beat here and horns there, and they're playing music and creating music and showing the music. I didn't mean to cut you off.
But the other part of that, it's not just general attraction, but it's also the notion of mating, right? So it was quite a while back that in Japan, they came up with apps where it's just you did proximity and whatever device. I think it was on the end of this. I think they had on the end of it. Literally, your light would turn the same color as somebody else's light that had a profile of what you kind of wanted to do.
And I have a feeling that's where the Apple Watch is going. Because Apple's investing in this thing called Bluetooth beacons. Apple called it iBeacon. Sure.
Yeah.
iBeacon is the software layer on top of the radio. You ran the Bluetooth stack at Apple, so you probably have some insight in this. But the beacon is a little $10 radio that you put it underneath here, and it spits a number into the air every second. And then my iPhone can sense how close it is to this beacon. And Apple's putting 65 of these in every baseball stadium this year, right? And Macy's and Apple stores have them already. And we're going to see an explosion of these beacons throughout the world.
65 every stadium?
Every stadium, yeah. And every iPhone, and this is where I've been giving a lot of talks on this, and I always ask who's carrying a beacon, and usually one guy, like Annie, hold up something like a tile or that has a beacon in it. But then I ask who has iOS and iPhone, and like at South by Southwest Music, it was 90%.
Yeah.
Really?
And every single one of these has a beacon in it. So I can build a new social network based on the beacons just in this room, right? And if I'm wearing something that can react to the world,
well, now especially if he can be, I dare to say that if he can become the hub, right? So let's just say that he's the beacon. Now you start circling around him, and then you can start choosing whose music you can listen to. There's already been these like huge concerts and stuff where everybody has headphones on. It's like a silent concert.
Yeah.
And
Everybody's beach.
yeah, you did.
Okay, so but imagine if I was just curious about what you're listening to, right? And I get near you and you set it up so that I don't care if somebody hears what I'm listening to, and all of a sudden I'm tuned into what you're listening to. And it could totally change whether I approach you, not approach you, whether we engage, or whether I just learn about new music. Right?
So here's my question: is that a mass market product, or is that Silicon Valley operating in a bubble?
How much do you care what other people are listening to?
Actually, it was pretty interesting. You guys heard of the headphone Beats, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of my friends at school have actually gotten that brand. And, I mean, it's a pretty good brand, but they've gotten kind of the lower version of it.
Is that what age are you?
Beats.
13.
Is that a Beats product?
Beats, yeah.
But they're cheaper.
Yeah, it's the cheaper style.
Right.
But they have their own music
that work. Noise blocking.
Right.
But, and I told my dad, I kind of want these because they look cool. They have been said that they work pretty well. But he said, that he had better ones that work very well. And this actually goes back to your point about what the hell, this thing just has cheap lights on it. Why is it so much better? And I said, to him, I would rather get the Beats because it's the brand. And it's what other people are listening to.
Freedom.
Exactly. It's not like when you go
And
into a
they
store.
hacked your brain very specifically to create that.
Exactly.
At a very young age. So how can I do that?
So how are they?
But not to get too orthogonal, but so yesterday skiing, right? We saw that Skull Candy with Smith has come up with in-ear stuff that works with any Smith helmet. And there's two versions. There's a drop-in which uses a wire, and there's a Bluetooth version. And of course, the Bluetooth version looks really cool. It's $199. You basically stick a control panel on the side of your head. Go to Amazon.com. The one that's the drop-in gets 2 stars. Why? Why does it get 2 stars?
No Bluetooth.
No.
It's expensive.
No? Come on, guys.
Too hard.
North Face. Why does it get 2 stars?
Doesn't look cool.
Because the wires freeze. And it only works for like a day.
Oh, right.
Oh, my
and then,
gosh.
And then it doesn't work anymore.
Oh,
The
that's
Bluetooth version, with all 7 reviews that it's gotten, gets 5 stars.
Yeah, that's
Right? So, in good design, bad design, right? So it doesesn't do it. If they just created a shielding or something like that, or do that, right?
I got that, but I went to Iowa for a wedding recently, and I tweeted out a joke. And it's like, the time change from California to Iowa, it's really tough. In California it's 8 a.m. and here in Iowa it's 1986.
I was just going to say, it's either time to get up and farm or time to go to sleep.
But what I saw was I just walked around and everyone's just back a decade. And I feel like we're making products, why we should be. We're supposed to be pushing things forward, but I'm wondering if we're missing the boat a little bit in terms of, at the end of the day, we're making a business.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the eye thing. So
Yeah, it's like your body's the best sensor in the world. Do you really need, all the...
I'm not saying we don't.
But no, you should.
No, there's a sensor under development that will tell you you're going to have a heart attack 24 hours in advance. Your body is doing stuff that you can't sense, and therefore there are going to be real deep breakthroughs with sensor packs on you that you're going to want to wear around because they're literally going to save your life.
Well, hold on a second, because this comes back to, again, this is my thing. I said 13 years ago when I started in this space, I didn't start in the fashion space. To me, I looked at SCOTTeVEST as a wearable computer platform where you can put a device in here and another device in here. This is before Bluetooth. You had to connect devices, but it's primarily for battery power. Are there any major breakthroughs in battery power on the horizon or recently?
I think you have to look beyond battery, look at kinetic power or
Solar.
other.
Well, I think also you have to look at making devices that don't do so freaking much and are not so graphically.
But these Arduino lily pads run off a little coin battery for a good amount of time.
And that's what impressed me so much with
And
this.
Intel has a new chip, a new computer that's a small wearable computer that uses.
how long is your Fitbit?
How about wireless power?
How long?
7 days.
7 days. So
That's
the job
Yeah,
level
wireless
with
power's
us
not too.
is up to
Yeah.
15 days.
There's
2
a
weeks.
deal- there's a
This is
deal-
only now up to 5
It's a pain
days.
in the ass. I
Yeah,
have all the consumer, I don't get to see things in advance, but as they come out, I see them, and I do not want to, you gave me your Oakley goggles. There's nothing worse than you're skiing and you got to futz with the electronics and then your battery's out. I mean, and then my helmet, my battery's out. And then my Google Glass, my battery's out. And then my iPhone, I've got battery packs after battery pack. It's just,
Is there anything in that LG cable?
Can I plug my phone in?
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
And the inside and the outside are what
There we go.
And so it's like in a shape.
Yeah.
27.
Just make it longer.
Park actually showed me an inkjet printer that prints battery material and 30% more efficient because they can really accurately align the chemicals together.
That's
That's
why
30%. It's not like 10x right. This is But there's a 17-year-old that came to my party, and I know some of these guys. He's developing wireless power. He can throw wireless power through the air, through kilometers, and hit your device and charge your device up. So
I've seen that.
So, yeah, I
mean, is that really?
Don't put your device near your crotch.
Yeah,
It's real.
We have an intern working for us right now where he takes a speaker and he powers it wirelessly. It's the most amazing thing we've ever seen. And the whole goal there is that you walk in a room and it's broadcasting power, and your phone's charging when you're walking around, your computer's charging.
So is that really? I've seen
the
that
guys
like
who-
on a TED speech.
the guys who are building these micro machines in Ireland and that I went to, they have micro machines that generate power. And how does your pacemaker work? Your pacemaker doesn't have a battery. It's your body charges up.
Kinetic.
The pacemaker was the first Playboy I ever invented.
Yeah. Well, one of them.
Not
Probably,
right.
yeah. Glass is really a.
But when I think about your stuff, the other thing we talked about, the mating thing. But one of the greatest things that people keep touting about the Samsung Watch, or the Google Watch, or the Apple Watches, is this really simple thing. It has been available for a long time, which is the notion of something not in your hand or on your face, but on your somewhere else, telling you you've got a phone call. It sounds very simple, but that is a Bluetooth thing that could be absolutely interwoven into clothing, with incredibly long battery life. If it's only powering a single LED, and just like on a GoPro, it'll blink once if it's my wife, it'll blink twice if it's my kids, right? And that's all it is, but it's built in, and that solves a lot of what people think is the cool thing about what they want really to happen. Right?
Well, how many phone calls do we all get? I get one a day at most. It's text, it's email.
But this goes back to Iowa. Iowa, they still get a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Fuck
Let
Iowa.
me ask you a question. I kind of came into this thing, a little late here, but are we all just like technology addicted? Because sometimes it feels like it's a solution
Absolutely.
searching for a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we can all generate data of your steps, calories,
Yes,
all
but
that
that's
shit.
where the
Like-
picture comes from.
But
It
like
does
this
not come
phone,
from
this phone
Iowa.
does everything for me.
It does not come from Iowa. It comes from playing. Even the iPhone, right? I was at the first iPhone Dead Camp, which had 40 people, 50 people at it, and people were just like playing with it.
Yeah.
The developers were just like, how deep could I hack this thing? And Andy didn't even do a good job, Right? And I remember Blake Ross showing me, oh shit, I got a ball to bounce on the screen back and forth. That's all I did. And 2 years later, he's director of Facebook mobile platform, right? Because he figured out how to make this thing do
I
something.
think Scott just hit a point though. It is a phone, yeah, but I mean the uses that iPhone is really your SMS and your web browser. I mean, are the two most important things in your world. I mean, those are the
And
things.
apps.
Well, the apps are all based on your.
But still, I still get back to battery. Because
no major breakthrough, right?
Yeah, but
what is with
no,
that?
no, the electronics on your wrist has a 9.
Yeah, but that's a watch battery, but it doesn't have a display, and it's very limited.
You get that giant iPhone case that has the solar power, triple charges your phone.
If you were
this stuff is
if you
designed.
had a choice for the next iPhone says we can make it the graphics prettier, make it faster, or we can make it slightly bigger and take some of the pretty graphics away and let it last as long as your
the
old
problem is that Qualcomm is
RIM
gonna
or
use more
BlackBerry
processors. What's that?
for two
Are they going to
weeks.
say Intel and Qualcomm? They're going to ask for more
Processor
processor,
speed,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the same way. I mean, so it's like okay.
Also,
right?
Broadcom showed me wireless power. It's a pad that's about this big, and Intel showed it a bowl at CES
Sick.
that has a coil around it and a processor that spits the power to the device.
Could they be set? Here's the
Yes,
device.
you can have 8 different devices on the pad,
Yeah.
and it's.
But they're sitting on the pad. That's
No,
how
it can be. The pad can be underneath this wood, and it would still power up. It could.
Or what if it was a
charge
lightweight pad that was in a piece of clothing?
Right,
So
but
you drop your device in your piece of
My
clothing.
toothbrush has wireless power.
the problem is
Yeah.
the problem is you have to have a power receiver on,
Yeah.
on whatever,
It's like a magnet,
and it has a chip in it because it talks to the pad. The pad has a shitload of electronics.
Yeah.
It's not just power; it's actually sensing where the device is, and it's throwing the power to that device, so there's no wastage and also no radiation coming off that. It just finds this thing sitting over it, and it starts charging. It starts spitting power from the coil.
I think
into
it's
the
so
system.
cool. Like I just got a new toothbrush, a Philips toothbrush, and you put it in this little glass dish, and the glass dish is sitting on a base, and it charges your toothbrush. You just throw it in there. There's no plug.
Right.
I'd love to see these things, and I'd love to see
So they're
developers. But
they're coming in the
sooner,
tube.
and they don't have to come wirelessly too. They make it bigger and put more power and take less graphics. And
Aren't there new batteries for clothing, especially that are flexible? Like
Well,
sheets?
yeah, there.
What
Yes,
happened to that?
there's some, and we dream of, and we created this video called the Tech 2.0, where we challenged all electronics. We did it for CES, primarily for press, but we came out with this concept of flexible batteries around the base that actually recharge as you walk, and your zipper being an extension of your antenna, the metal in your zipper. There are a lot of opportunities in that space that I don't think people have even begun to touch on. But Tom, you were chiming in.
Yeah, pockets with magnetic that can recharge devices through magnetic induction. You drop. It has a base plate on your phone, you put it in the pocket, and that's what allows the power to transfer. You hang up your jacket on a special hanger each night, and that hanger is plugged into the wall. So essentially you're recharging your jacket, and then your jacket recharges the stuff in it through various, interfaces.
That's cool.
But the display is another issue, right? Display, right?
What's that?
The display is another issue because sucking on the battery, the Wi-Fi connectivity is another issue, right?
Yeah, that's where I was going with this product. If I'm going to be the product manager of version 2 of this, I have a vision of you blow this thing up and it sprays this thing onto people, you know, and that's the TV
Like a
commercial.
disco ball?
And then you have different JBL Pulse, you know, the things that you wear on you, and it pulses to whatever's going on in the room.
That's the future.
Right? And then if you have the base station and we're all wearing this thing, then it starts syncing together. Like Disneyland does this. They have hats with LEDs on it. And you don't even realize this, but if you get 10,000 of those hats together, they all sync together and they all play a light show.
Well, Coldplay
It's only
did
been used
that
once
show.
because they handed out 7,000 of the press people that came to the launch of that thing. But when you're walking around, there's only 15 people who have the hats on. It's pulses, but it doesn't. You want to see the pattern.
You watch Coldplay's video, and they give a bracelet to everybody in the crowd. Right? There's 50,000 people, and it's controlling the whole crowd. You know, it's everybody's bracelet's blue, it's green, it's flashing, it's blinking, it's sick. It's awesome.
And not to miss the end of the Disney point. So I was very involved with them. This was my first job, but I was very involved with them later on FastPass. So right now, if you look carefully, FastPass Plus is coming, but more importantly, the Disney Band is coming. So basically, what they're going to do is they're going to have 50,000 sensors going on.
I added on 2 weeks ago.
Can you authenticate?
Magic bands.
You can't.
Basically a heart rate or anything like that?
Yeah, it is
like the Nimi bracelet or something.
Yeah. So this is definitely.
You know what, the Magic bands, right?
It's a Magic Band.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So and what they're planning to do, don't want to get in. I could draw charts and charts about what FastPass did for them, right? But the Magic Band's going to do. This is their great dream of being literally able to. We talked about herding cows and stuff. They're going to be able to put you exactly where you want to be at the right place and time to feed you by offering you 20% less, and they're going to absolutely manage, literally almost like God, the 50,000 people in their park every day.
Hey, what's up, people? How are you?
All right.
Come on in.
Let's take this sick.
We're just having a wearables powwow talking about wearables.
What's up, man?
Got a lot of brains in this room, man. This is cool. It's very rare, by the way, that we have a meeting of this kind of caliber ever. And
It happens almost on time and stays on time.
yeah, but I remember doing this with social software at Dana Street Cafe back in 92 or 2002. When everybody was laid off, and Dan and Mina Trott were there, Evan Williams was there, Evan Biscuit were there, Dave Weiner was there, Brad Fitzpatrick. And at one table, we had the fucking whole social software space.
So what question should we address here? I mean,
I don't know that there is a question because it's a new space and it's interesting to explore and dream about. It's like that's why I like Burning Man, because it's not, you don't have to create a space. You just have to show off to your friends that hey, I got something to blink.
What I think these beacons thing you're talking about is like creating these little micro networks.
Yeah,
is so cool.
I think there's a new social network coming.
That is cool.
Like we've been sitting together for 35 minutes right now, and our system, our phone can note that, right?
And none of our cloud scores went up.
And we're all worried about power. I mean,
that's
the number one issue.
Yeah, but no one.
Can you remember when you could watch the first time you could watch a movie on your laptop when it wasn't plugged in and make it all the way through the movie?
Yeah.
And so there's all these epic milestones all the way along. But for them, they want to be able to make it obviously through the whole day. Their pain points are slightly different, but so are ours. But for mass adoption, there's two things. One is you have to get to past that pain point where it becomes the unconscious. But then it's also, to the discussion that I just heard, it's also the fax machine issue. The fax machine is no good if there's only one in the universe, right? It's not useful. So it's the pain point that you remove, and then it's the number of people that have the device that makes it interesting for the people collecting the data, for the people wearing the device to communicate, and for the people that are interested in leveraging that information and willing to pay for it.
Kennedy's one of the world's experts on Minecraft. Does anything? Hey, you're here and nobody else is. So.
You're the expert in the room.
There's two people that invented the light bulb. One made it to the patent office first. We don't know who the other one is. Is there anything in the Minecraft world that informs you where you think the world of wearable technology might go, or in the gestalt of that?
What is Minecraft?
Oh, shoot.
She said it in 3 minutes.
Okay, well.
It's a video game where you build shit.
No, let her talk.
Minecraft is basically a sandbox game made entirely out of blocks, where basically there are literally no rules. You download the game and you do whatever you want. There's no rules to follow. You can hack it. You can play with other people. You can build whatever you want. And to put it simply, there's literally nothing you can't do unless you can't imagine it. There you go. Yeah.
So people are building these characters in this world. Are people doing something with them, with their bodies, their virtual bodies, that might inform where the world is going?
In Minecraft, basically the version of technology is called redstone. That's basically like the wires and all that kind of stuff. But you can use command blocks and all this kind of crap. Just that I've never been able to get into just because it's so complicated. But they'll use this a lot on multiplayer. But basically, say you spawn into a world, or say you get killed, there'll be a little trap box and everything pops up, and what's really great is that you can actually look at people, see where they are in the map, and that kind of stuff. So I guess if that's what you're talking about, then yes, there definitely is where you can find other people no matter where they are.
So I have a question for everyone, in all seriousness. This is a selfish question.
Yeah.
We design clothing. I have a really, and I'm here leading or hosting a wearable conference. I have a feeling personally that clothing shouldn't be more than clothing. I don't think clothing should have lights on it. I think it should have pockets, intelligently designed to put the things you need in it. But I don't think clothing should have embedded sensors. I don't think it should have built-in batteries necessarily, although I do like the idea from Tom.
I think you're already failing, man.
Why? That's very interesting. Why? Why do you take that?
Well, for a variety of reasons. Number one, I think people like to buy their clothing and not make an electronic buying decision. They like to buy clothing and know that in a year from now I'm going to buy something else. It's fashion. You need to wash it. And a lot of these technologies were not. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in Shine because things are happening that will allow that. But I think there are other ways that you can grab the technology and attach it to another clothing article because it limits you by putting it on clothing. Yeah. You change your clothing every day. Yes,
but sometimes. But again, what I've loved about North Face for a long time is I don't change it out every day. And in fact, when I buy something from North Face, I expect it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
Now, along those lines, I would be worried about putting wires.
It's different perception of what you're doing.
It is. So it's a slightly different use case, but I don't think it's necessarily niche. I think
I'm talking at the consumer level. I'm not talking about
one of the things that you have to recognize is the clothing you're wearing now is much more active than the clothing you had before. You're viewing it as here we are and it's just like it was before. All of these materials, whether it's Gore-Tex or whatever, nanotechnology, and all these things are changing. And what people want is things on their body that allow them to do more without thinking about it. And all of the old solutions like
even if their cell phone will do that for them. I mean, there was a company called Bimbo that controlled your cell phone when your cell phone is right here. I mean,
it depends who you are. If you're a professional athlete and you're
that's a different world.
But there's wearables for professional athletes who are trying to get a 1/10%.
Well, that's gamifying. That's gamifying.
No.
Physical activity.
It's not just gamifying, it's actually watching what's going on in your body at a deep level that you can't perceive. The 3D sensor that PrimeSense makes can see your heart rate from across the room because it can sense your pulse. Your skin is changing color with every heartbeat, and I can't see that, but the sensor can see that. The sensor
got to be built into clothing.
I don't know. That's interesting, but certainly the shirt I was wearing at CES with this grid of LED
that
lights.
Was for fashion. That was for advertising costume.
There's actually a startup in France called Citizen Science. The sensors actually in the clothes. You don't actually see them. It's washable. So you don't even know it's there. It's collecting your biometric data.
And it's washable.
Washable.
Yeah.
And it's
They want
unfortunate,
one of
and
the
you gotta
best
worry about
answers.
charging.
No, the costs are coming down so
And
fast,
it's
you can't
chargeable.
assume any of this stuff costs any money in 5 years. This stuff,
Yeah.
yes, right now it's $5,000 for this shirt, but in
But if
5
you could do
years
it
it's
with a
gonna be
pulse band
$20.
instead, if you could do it with a pulse band that measures your.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. Garmin. I mean, Garmin tells me all that stuff. I don't need to.
So can we go to that question? Remember Noah Ilinsky today talked about purpose, content, structure, and formatting?
Yeah.
I think we're talking about a lot about structure and formatting, if I may, and tactical.
Yeah.
And I'd like to go to purpose. So I want to start back with
No,
you, because I think you were right on a
Yeah, we don't need
good
that.
question. Like, if you could augment any part of your normal physical human entity
To be
with
like
some
Minecraft.
superpower,
Yeah.
of a superhero, what would you augment?
Well, I think that for me, the biggest thing that I think everyone uses, the biggest of the 5 senses, the biggest thing we use every day, is our eyes. So if you think about it, and I actually read a book where there was a person who could do this. What if every time you heard a phrase that you didn't know, a small thing popped up with a short description of what it was? Or what if every time someone lied to you, a little light blinked up
Love
in your
that.
eyes? You knew that, right?
Wow.
So that'd be pretty valuable. Right?
That's
So I think
huge.
that for me,
Invasion
that's
of-
probably the thing I'd want to change.
Wow.
Now, whether that's wearable or not, it's important.
Yeah.
Well, I
Right?
think that's why facial recognition is
Well,
important. I
that's
mean,
what
I would have loved to have known that we
You don't
knew
need
each
facial
other
rec-
from, what's
You
that?
don't need facial recognition.
Or
You don't
some,
need facial
well,
recognition. You have a fucking beacon in your pocket. It's spraying your
Yeah.
number into the fucking air, and I can be sitting next to you and know
okay.
that Scotty
But then I can see it in a non-obtrusive way.
Right, but you don't need to do face recognition.
No, okay,
and
all right,
you don't need to
good.
spend a lot of processor power doing
All right,
it.
all right,
So
can
you
we
were
go
wearing a
around?
fucking
Okay.
beacon.
Can we go around and say, what would you augment? So you said, first of all, information. You would augment a lie detector, or what was the other one?
Kind of, so every time you hear an unknown phrase.
Oh, translator.
Yeah.
Translator, lie detector.
Or just
Okay.
definition, yeah. That's
Yeah.
Yeah,
By the way, I came to that realization because when I brought this home, she said, "Does it do face detection?" And
That's
Google
pretty
says,
good.
"Google says no, it can't do face detection because of privacy problems."
I think that's stupid.
No, it doesn't matter because this thing can see that beacon, and as soon as
Okay,
you see the
okay.
beacon, I
Fair
know
enough.
you.
Who it is.
And if he doesn't have a beacon.
I can do exactly what.
But if
you
he knows everyone in
expect.
Facebook, Facebook right now does a pretty good job of knowing who I took a picture of.
So see,
Actually,
for
that's a
me,
shitty
like
job.
as a consumer,
It's a shitty-
that
it's a shitty
could
job.
tell me
Okay.
what brand your glasses were when I looked at you, what brand his sunglasses were, and that jacket, who made that jacket. That's helpful for me as a consumer because I might see something I like.
Brand ID.
Yeah, like image recognition, not facial recognition, but an
Yeah.
image recognition. Like he's drinking Blue Moon.
But in the future, every product is going to have a little Bluetooth radio in it, and every product is going to have maybe a display, right? We went to Oakley and talked to their team, and they're thinking about a world where everything is smart.
Yeah.
Has
Exactly.
something in it that signals to the world. So if I'm wearing these new smart Oakley glasses, even if they don't have a display, maybe it has a beacon in it, and it has a Bluetooth radio that's talking to my phone, and my phone passes.
It was almost like, what was it, the Terminator or Minority Report? Everywhere he looked, it was like,
Yeah.
hat, wearing a polo sweater, not a.
But you notice it.
By the way, this is the first consumer
I
electronics
like
gadget.
where you were going. To me, it's information exchange both ways. I want to
Absolutely.
know shit, and
I
I
think
want
that's
to.
the most valuable.
Yeah, that's the
Information
most
is
valuable.
the most valuable part of the 21st century is about information. 20th century is
Information.
manufacturing. 19th century agriculture and transportation.
Yeah.
So we're in the
How can I
information
get
world.
information
She wants more
as
information.
quickly
Yeah,
and
but-
seamlessly? And then we haven't even started talking about user interface.
Yeah.
I mean,
You notice in none of these examples, the first thing we don't say is I launched the brand recognition app to find out what you're wearing. No, it's supposed to always be going. We've been trained ourselves. I want to go eat some food, so I launched Yelp or Urban Spoon. Right? So we have to get off of this. I launch a thing to do a thing because you have a discovery problem. It should just always be run.
It should always be
in the
run.
background. So
Which is
context
better.
aware of what you're going to need.
But that's not
but they're always running. I mean, it's.
So can we go on another?
In the next one.
What's next?
Well, I think what really blew me away with this Hugh hair thing. Yeah, he really bionics are real, right? And so he was showing stuff. I mean, bionics are real that can both replace limbs, but very importantly, can augment your ability. So they showed a guy, running up a mountain and and able to run up a mountain that he could not run up without this capability. And it wasn't big and it wasn't bulky like we saw maybe 3 years ago. It was sleek and it looked like something that I wouldn't mind wearing. So the question is, you know, it raises
a friend of mine is paraplegic and has an exoskeleton and he can walk around because of this exoskeleton.
But that's a pretty cumbersome thing.
Right now it is.
Right now,
but remember, a Wi-Fi radio used to be this big.
Boombox.
If you go to Broadcom and see the first Wi-Fi radio that's in their lobby, it's this big, and now it's like that big. You know, it's not even. It's so small now that I can't even point it out on my thing.
Well, it's bionics, but it's not necessarily to do more, but it's also to keep me from screwing myself up. So I shattered my spine about 3 years ago, and luckily they were able to squeeze some cement in there and do some other stuff, so I'm able to be up. I went skiing and all that. But I would love to have something on. It's sort of like a knee brace, but something on that's actually very intelligent that would let me not exceed my limits. So that's
a
limiter.
There is one thing to say about having like bionic legs and that kind of thing. Is like, what if, you know, every time someone got into a car accident and, you know, they broke a bone, they were able to replace it, and then their arm is now twice as capable as any human arm. What happens when that person, like maybe that person, you know, got bionic legs and they're a racetrack runner? Well, now they have an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
So what happens to the rights of people who are part bionic?
Well, that was already addressed, has been, and it's already gone with, like, Pistorius with his...
The
golf player that doesn't
have, that got to every athlete is getting LASIK now to augment their serum. So that's bionics.
So
that's just
what's the most important thing? What's the end goal for you for wearables, whatever?
I really, because I've been working with senators and council members in that, they're always fundraising, going to events. I was praying that they were going to let us put facial recognition into that thing, because I wanted all my senators and council members and governors.
I mean, it is there. It's just one step away.
Okay,
I mean,
but since we can't have that, I love the idea of beacons and being able to just look at my iPhone and understand where everybody is right now and what's going on. But as someone who's thinking about having a family with my wife now, I would love a sensor to know where my kid is all the time.
Life 360.
It's already there. So it's been invented. So that's all I have.
By the way, everyone, the Wi-Fi password for guest is 12345.
So we're talking about sensors, or we're talking about augmenting ourselves?
Wearables.
What do you make that? Whatever you want to wear.
So speaking of augmenting, I had the gastric bypass when it was not safe to do it. I almost lost my life trying to change the way I was eating. And now I'm trying to give up carb because I'm fascinated, but I want to be in this shape and I can't because I love food. So I want something that would make the food that I don't like, but it's good for me, make it so that it tastes good and the portions, and then I have the experience of I'm eating a chocolate cake, but I'm really eating kale. I think it's taste or
the sensors that are causing you to
have but I think I'm drinking
taste bud manipulation.
Yeah. The subtle irony is I would like to eat more kale, but I needed to taste that chocolate cake. Right?
How do you change that perception, I guess?
Your brain is evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to like fatty foods because
it tastes good.
No, they were rare.
And you needed
if you could find a fatty food and eat it, that stored you some energy for a month, right? And that was survival for your genes, right? And that's why we like fatty food. And now we don't eat it anymore, but our minds are still.
We gotta taste it. Fried food is good.
So you see every wearable. What would you want to do? Robert Scoble.
Yeah, that's. Can we have a drum roll?
I was going to say, what would you open first? Because that'll be.
I mean, the things I'm seeing are, and we already sort of sensed it in this conversation, are splitting into things of utility. A sensor that tells me I'm having a heart attack before I have one, or a sensor that tells me I have cancer, or a sensor that tells me something about my exercise at a deep level. If I'm a triathlete, I really have a need for this utility. I'm not a triathlete. I used to run marathons in high school, but now I I just need the basic, which is get off the fucking couch and go for a little walk, you know?
All those
Well, that makes
analytics.
sense. Yeah, that's called the
Analytics.
Fitbit, right? But the future of this sensor pack that you're going to wear is like really deep analytics on your body. That's one thing. And then as Ted, there was an MIT media researcher that showed a new operating system that she could grab your watch and tie it to a light.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
could do something with that. And that's a mind shift on its own,
Yeah.
which is where I was going with the
Tie
mind
anything to
pack.
anything, dude.
Because when the kids are playing with this virtual world, where anything can happen, right? And like you
So
said,
what they're doing-
if you can conceive it, if you can think it up, you can build it, right?
But what they're doing, without even realizing, is that they're doing significant advanced electrical wiring. Is what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're having to create circuits to do anything they want. You can't just have things, to do things by themselves in this virtual world. It has to have this redstone. What's the power supply? What's the power source?
Well, redstone is the power source, and then there's redstone dust, which is basically the wires,
The wires.
gunpowder, where the power will kind of go through them, and then you got levers and buttons and pistons that'll like push things through. And you'd be amazed. Actually, I made one thing. It's pretty much the only redstone thing that I made. I've never been too great at it, but it's called the pointless lever. And basically, you put the lever down, and you click it, and you move it like this. And you hear all these noises, and then a piston comes up and it pushes the lever back into the first position, and then goes away. So you keep flicking it. Every time it'll just come back and turn it back off.
Yeah.
So within
It's like
the
working for
crazy
the
part is-
government, actually.
Exactly. The crazy part is how much redstone that took. I had to watch a how-to video like 3 or 4 times before I kind of figured out how it all works. So it's a hard skill to learn.
This is, I love science fiction because it informs where the future's going. I met the guy who wrote Minority Report, the screenwriter for Minority Report, and he said Steven Spielberg came to him and said, I want a movie that's plausible but a decade away, And now we have everything in Minority Report we have today.
This is a really interesting statement because I believe science fiction ultimately creates the future.
I think Minecraft is the current best interface for building science fiction, right? Building whatever the
You never see in any science fiction movies, whether set 100 years out, 150 years out, 10 years out, clothing doing more than clothing. There are attachments.
Yet.
I like how you talk. See, that's my runner.
No,
she's
but
the future. By the way, there is a generational thing. When I've shown this to 800 people, and when I show it to people under 25, invariably they say, "This is my future." When I show it to people over 25, they're like, "What do I do with this?" They ask that kind of.
There's also a Knight versus Women's split with that.
I would argue Dick Tracy,
I had high school
70
girls.
years ago, predicted the Pebble watch and Samsung, and that was a wearable.
Yeah.
It depends. I clothing though. I was very specific. I agree. No. There's lots of communicators and devices and.
Well, there's material now. There's material now that reacts to your heat and changes color. Fashion is certainly going to be affected by wearing.
Like that's from the 80s.
Yeah, but I was wearing a shirt with a green.
That would be cool.
That you can now embed LED lights and compute and wires in the fabric at a pretty thin level. I mean, it's comfortable and it's waterproof and it's washable. And okay, it costs $3,000 today, but in 5 years it's going to be $20, right?
Can I interject something? Yeah. As much as we love this speaker, and like I was saying at the party, the only reason everyone is staring at that speaker is because it's lit up. If it wasn't lit up, we wouldn't be looking at the speaker. Yeah. So, Scotty, you say you think it's fashion. What if, like she was saying, the mood ring, what if something actually told your mood by your clothing somehow? That would be cool. And I'd be like, why is your jacket turning color?
Same story.
I'm getting pissed off.
Same story where you're doing that, right?
Yeah. But at Smug Mug, one of the designers there put LED lights in his office. And if it's red, you leave him alone. If it's green, you can go in, right? And he has a way on his iPhone to change all the color in his space. The clothing is going to be like that. I'm gonna present you my identity through my clothing.
It's like mood rings.
Right, that's the movement.
But even if I'm at a San Francisco Giants game, I want my clothing to change to a Giants uniform.
Scott,
right?
wouldn't you love it if when someone walked in the room, everybody in the room was like, "Oh my God, look at your jacket! What's going on? Where'd you get that jacket?" You would love that if that was your jacket you were making.
Yeah, but I
Right,
wouldn't
but
love it
could
if I
you-
walked in the room and everyone else's jacket started lighting up too. It's cool when one person.
Really? I don't know about that. I got that jacket too.
You know, and I'm the only one.
From a technology, they can't keep these in stock. They can't keep those in stock.
What do you want
They're
to
cheap
augment,
speakers,
Sam?
right?
So Sam does PR and strategy for JBL. Let's speak.
So do you have what's your dream world?
I find it interesting that just I might as well comment. I come from gaming, interactive, worked with several companies, HP, even though Andy and I didn't know each other.
You were in the first Mac user group at Stanford.
I co-founded Stanford Mac Users Group back in '85. So I mean,
you're old.
Anyway, I'm old, but I might be old years-wise, but I play with a lot of technology, cool stuff. Anyway, you guys are talking about a lot of high-end stuff, tech, health, science, and the first adopters are not in that space. The first adopters is entertainment. That is proven for the last 40 years.
Certain kind of entertainment.
No.
Any other expenditure in the first world or the third world, it outshines any other thing, including health, by like
It
6
blows everything away in order of magnitude, 3 orders of magnitude.
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, yeah, Dole, Andy, thanks for that plug. But anyway, it's not that. It's all different. That actually did push a lot of technology.
Video, streaming,
Blu-ray.
yeah.
Anyway, my take is that the people that are going to catch on to this quicker than anyone is the people in the gaming space and the people in the music and
So what is the
entertainment.
future though? What is it?
So I think the lighting. I've already played with the jackets. They're made in Europe when we were there for a little while. That changes colors based on the temperature. They're unbelievable. They're $1,000. They're beautifully made, and you can tell how cold it is outside by the color of the jacket.
And did people freak out when they see them for the first time?
No way. They have
Very
them in
subtle.
freezers. The displays, the point of purchase, are in refrigerators that are clear. So when they take them out, they go, "Here, check this out." It turns blue.
But do you really need to know that though?
That's cool. It doesn't matter.
Look at why are we all coveting your hoodie? Because there's only 100 of them. It's scarcity. It's identity.
I bought one.
Identity.
I bought one anyway.
It's identity.
So my point is that the gaming industry, they're the first ones to blow this out of the water. They adopt this quicker than anyone. Absolutely. And that's where I think it's going to be started.
If Andy and I were really bold and had some guts, we would create a sex game for Fitbit. And
Well, the first product in this paging space that was for sex.
That's your key.
Right.
Tom, you're up. Tom, the Skype man.
I'm Tom the Skype man. I actually do look like the Skype man. So, in terms of senses and things like that, I'd say I'd want to have eyes in the back of my head. I'd want to be able to
Scully motorcycle helmet does that, by the way.
Yeah.
I won't feel
Tom, this is David. Can I suggest a different position? If you could have a third eye, where should it be? And it would, if I may say that, not in the back of your head. There's a better place.
I'm being metaphorical, but I'd say probably center of your back or maybe even on a hand.
By the way, they have cameras now that are a millimeter by a millimeter. I used to have a picture of one, and it's.
From design, it should be.
Tom is the kind of guy, if you go to a restaurant, he will not sit with his back towards the door. So, he needs to see.
So video cameras, but where would you see it? Into your Google Glass or onto your iPhone, or how would you see behind you?
Embedded
I was actually being metaphorical.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Scully motorcycle helmets actually has that. They have a camera right behind you, so when you're driving down the street, it's a heads-up display like a Google Glass kind of thing in the motorcycle helmet that you can just see the back camera. And and so you can see somebody coming into your space. And
That's about ready to ship.
It's JBL helmet?
No, Scully helmet.
So there's a brand new product on the market that is actually designed for bicycles through the incubator is PCH, but they've gone a big Spire, I think is what it is, and it's a beautiful thing. In fact, it looks like an eye link. It's this long cylindrical object that goes on the front of your bicycle that projects a laser-based image about 20 or 30 feet in front of you onto the roadway that looks like a bicycle. For runners, there should be something on their clothing that projects a laser image.
Oh, got it.
That's cool.
20 feet in front of you that says you're coming.
Yeah, that's cool.
Or behind you around.
We should put it on deer.
A group that went on
That's
to add something like that. I mean, it doesn't.
Were we done with Tom?
Yeah, Tom, was that?
No, I was just getting started.
Go. Augment away.
Me too. I want to monitor people that I care about and let them, if they want me to be monitoring them. So, have an accelerometer and something that says, I know you've fallen and can't get up.
Right
Instead
on.
of I've fallen and can't get up.
Yep.
That's easy technology. I want to know if someone that I care about, if my girlfriend is walking home, through a dark parking lot at night and her heart rate spikes.
Yeah.
It would be nice to know, hey, there's something potentially going on, or even have her car alarm go off for whatever. I mean, the interface can be a million different things. It could have an entertainment value. If you're playing like a shooting game or a fighter jet game, you don't know what's happening behind you a lot of times. It can give you a little buzz. Hey, there's a guy, sneaking up behind you in a game.
Yeah.
That's a part of your headset accessory. And I'd like to know when my laptop bag moves more than 10 feet away from me.
Yeah.
Separation anxiety, whether it's a kid, it's an object, it's a pet. It's something that goes beyond your physical senses, but extends them by, call it 15%.
I would buy that all day long. Not for every reason you just said. I'd buy that.
You say buy one.
Just because I want to know that my family's safe.
I
just
guess
want to know my
that's
family's safe.
a core thing. I mean,
There's already a product, and I forget the name of it. It's Liverly or something like that. You put a series of sensors in your parents' home, and something even as simple as does the refrigerator door open and close. That tells you somebody's home, right?
What if they can't push the button that says I've fallen and can't get up? I would already know. My alarms
You
would
would know
be
within
going
a
off.
few hours.
I would be
and then
racing to their house.
Because people have a common behavior of, opening the
Patterns.
refrigerator
Yeah.
every time of the day, going out for a walk.
That's brilliant.
So if my phone breaks Bluetooth connection with one of the sensors, you know that they left the house. There's all sorts of
the
ways.
sensor already exists, by the way. HP has it in their lab, so I actually looked at starting a company based on that.
Yeah.
And it's a vibration sensor, and to say that it's sensitive is a vast understatement.
Wow.
It's so sensitive, they actually deployed it in a trial with Shell Oil. They scattered about 1,000 of these little tiny pucks through a big oil field in Kansas. And the sensor basically listened for oil sloshing underneath the ground and helped them drill. And so I was looking at it from a consumer, a practical home application. But when I met with the team, all the PhDs, all big brand guys, and the guy dropped this line, he's like, the sensor is so sensitive, just on the first floor of a house, I can detect somebody breathing on the second story of the house.
Wow.
And I was like, that's pretty fucking cool. Once you have that kind of level, now you imagine 3 of those around the house, you can need triangulation. I can now know exactly footsteps. Or,
Oh my God.
Quick
What
question.
was it?
There's so much noise separating the signal of the breath versus the creaking of the house. It can do that.
Yes, that's exactly the genius.
Wow.
All the way they had a whole team of PhDs, all they did was fairly advanced signal analysis that allowed them to tease out the need of the haze.
Okay, that's
really within what level?
And that shit was developed for that was
it's HP Labs.
That was developed for DARPA, by the way, because that's how we sense whether the Iranians have a nuclear plant or not.
Right.
We put a lot of those sensors around, and we know if they're building something.
But those sensors aren't actually enclosed. And what I liked, what he said, was it Mark? I'm sorry. Tom, sorry, Tom. Because I was thinking, I've fallen and I can't get up. And so when he says that, I'm thinking, my parents are getting up there, and they might not have the chance to tell me they need it.
Yeah.
What if I could see their heart rate and everything else and be like, 911, get over there right now, they're having a heart attack.
Right just like that right now, We haven't chosen to fund it, but maybe you would like to. I'll be delighted to.
Wish I had the money.
What's your killer app for
How about someone that, what is it called, not, when you wander away from your home and not know where you are? Alzheimer's. Why wouldn't every Alzheimer's have your clothing with these sensors?
It's the same thing with kids. When you go to the mall, you need that. And you can say everybody has a phone, but the kids don't have a phone.
And if they've gone 10 yards away from you, the alarm goes off and tells you what direction they just went.
So the risk of creating a little structure, it's been about an hour into this. I'd love to get around the table fairly quickly. I love your question. What is your killer app?
My killer thing that I want is something that, coming back to a point you made, our body is the best sensor. I actually want, a product which is effectively Mind OS, and I want to use my eyes as sensors. I want to be able to record video effectively with what I see. I don't want to wear anything, is what I'm saying. And I want to solve the power problem because I got lots of power. If I had some way to interface with an outside world, either via like a wearable, like a hat, or something which
contact lens.
Actually, the brain does record everything you see. Everything.
Yeah. So what I want
it's just not useful, so you
I want an operating system for my head.
Well, what about, that's interesting. How do you open up that 80% of your brain? You're not
Yes.
I
heard this either, but I keep trying.
Here's a serious idea. I mean, something smart like you can invent it. The smart idea would basically be a tap that's basically duplicating. Like you duplicate a stream that's coming into your circuit. You duplicate everything that the visual and the oral circuits are hearing, and then you take some big machine learning, and you're then processing it with algorithms that are non-human. So it's an augmented brain, right?
And I know my body knows exactly everything that's going on with
because
it.
then you would learn languages like just so easily. You'd learn it and you just have it, right?
What if I could tap into my heart rate and I can just somehow monitor it?
So bring it back to this.
So bring it back to clothing.
I'll bring it back to clothing right now. So your body knows that it's getting hot. Your body knows it's getting hot. It connects to your device, your parka. Your parka that's Bluetooth based, and it opens up vents. It opens up vents without you even thinking about it. It just opens up little plastic vents.
When I speak in the next round, it works both ways. So when
it heats the cools and temperature, all of the things automatically based on the sensors that are telling it what to do.
Oh my gosh.
And so
that's unbelievable. You think about that. If I go skiing, I'm going to stay 72 or whatever the whole time.
Or you're walking up to the lift and you're sweating.
You guys hear that?
Yes.
Scotty, did you catch
all the technology for that's available right now?
Adaptable.
Okay, Scotty's got to hear
Whoa, we have a time check here.
I know, we're figuring that out.
Scotty, tell Scotty again what you just said.
Well, I know it's fighting you, Scott, so
I'd like you all to sign an NDA right now.
Right? Sign an NDA, because this is now.
No, but the idea is to have your body actually give information to your apparel. And your apparel reacts in a way that cools, heats, vents, thermostat clothing.
You're already...
There is that. It exists. It exists. There is clothing. I
What your body temperature and vents.
Electronically met.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
But it must be expensive.
It is. And
it doesn't have to be.
Right. Well, it's not
space
that
station,
expensive. It's a fabric.
But it might not be very good. None of it is it.
No. Don't make it fabric.
It's not a fabric.
None of it is using... None of it is
solving a
using...
problem that doesn't need solving. I take something off when I'm hot.
Well, because we've learned in catching to layer up for that reason. So we can strip down.
None of it uses intimate sensors, and the sensors are, the question that was asked by Robert earlier, or by you, is it going to have to be clothing? Yes, it has to be clothing, and it has to be base layer clothing, because that is the closest thing to your body. So that's where the sensors are. And all of that is here right now. And it's going to be a Santoni knit machine that's going to be using conductive fibers and nanoscale, or nanotechnology that's going to be able to embed things for electrical impulses. And you will do that, and then you can vent it. No clothing out there right now does a very good job of cooling. Most of it,
I was wearing, when I spoke at the Next Web last year, I was wearing a galvanic skin response sensor that watches the electrical signal from my brain, right?
Cool.
And the guy was watching my nervous system in real time and said, oh, you started out really nervous, you're on stage, and now you're pretty calm, and we're rolling along, and we start talking, and this was in Amsterdam, and then he brought up the red light district in Amsterdam, and it spiked up, and so
you're alive,
my
Phil.
brain's
You're living
Well, what is the time check, guys?
That's good.
You can share.
Right?
Yeah,
Dinner, what dinner?
I'm just walking to there from here.
Yeah, check lights.
Scott, let's go from here.
Okay.
We'll walk
Yeah.
there, right?
Everything is walking distance from here.
Where the hell is Clovis? You know where Clovis is?
Yeah, I'll go to Clovis.
Good food.
You know
Yeah, we'll go. I'll go
Clovis
with
is
you.
really good.
So Andy wants
You
a
wanna go?
OS.
Mind OS. That's another.
5 minutes.
No, it's
What do you
that's
want?
what's.
Until 6, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we're good.
What do you want?
Scott,
Yes.
is also walking with
Yeah.
you?
What is that there? Is that new clothing?